Welcome to Post-Traumatic Thriving, where we explore life's toughest issues along with the art, science, and stories of resilience. Please be advised that our guests share their raw stories of addiction, abuse, crime, and tragedy, along with tips to survive and thrive. And now, here is our host, Dr.RandallBell.
Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. I am Dr. RandallBell. TanyaBrown cannot be with us with this episode, so we want to thank Mel for stepping in. Mel's our producer and a Disney voiceover artist. So,
hi, everybody. Welcome.
Thanks for your voiceover skills and being here. And Wes Geer, you just shared your story to kind of quickly recap. The way I followed it was, we've spent a couple hours together in the prior episodes, but you grew up, you were born in Fullerton, your parents split up, and you mentioned that you learned later about that. I want to kind of get into what that kind of looked like with kind of healing from that childhood trauma. You're bouncing around to the East Coast, West Coast, back to the West Coast. You start, hanging out with the, in the parking lot doing pot, and then that grew into, other drugs. You kind of discover guitar. You're playing the guitar. You find out, hey, I really kind of like this. You stick with it. And, and then you're playing, in LA and around, and then you start touring with your own band and, kind of off and on with data entry skills. And then, it's kind of data entry, virtual homelessness, drugs, playing gigs, making some money. And then, you get into meditation and $10,000 checks showing up out of nowhere. That's kind of cool. And then, after years, the word gets out that, hey, you've cleaned up your act. You found AA. Korn calls you. That's major league. I mean, we're talking big bands there. And after 10 years, you start playing with them. They try you out a little bit. And then you tour dozens of countries, 60 or so different countries of touring, which is crazy. And then their old guitarist comes back, and then you create Rock 2 Recovery. And this is this dynamic program, which is connecting people and helping people, in the recovery process. Did I miss anything?
I was going to say that is a great job you've done to recap that.
Well, I'm listening.
If we were on a date, I'd be super impressed. I'd be like, this guy really cares.
So let's unpack some of this for a few minutes and start with, this question of, you're sitting here today, obviously a sober adult who's had some crazy success, and you're running these recovery programs. If you could magically go back in time and talk to that 14-year-old kid in the El Toro High School parking lots, smoking pot, what would you want to say to that kid or other kids out there that are listening that are kind of in that spot in their lives?
That's a great question. I think what I would say is follow your heart, trust your heart. Know that you're loved, and everything's going to be okay. I think I had a big problem with not feeling loved. Is just it'd probably be it. Follow your heart and know that you're loved.
Awesome. You mentioned some sexual abuse as a kid. Is there, I mean, I don't want to ask any uncomfortable questions, but is there anything else you wanted to kind of share about that part of your journey? Yeah.
And again, to like sharing what I would say to the 14-year-old me, it's like, not going to like predict the future for the little guy, but it's a pretty simple message. I think that we got to let people know that they're loved and just to trust themselves, on their journey. As far as the sexual stuff, wait, what was the question about the sexual stuff?
Well, I mean, is there just any more of that advice you would give to your younger self, or advice to others that are like finding themselves in that trauma right now, or dealing with the aftermath of that kind of thing? Any kind of pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, I would say in general that trauma doesn't have to be beaten up by a gang of 20 people. Trauma doesn't have to mean that your dad beat you. You know, trauma happens to all of us when we're hurt emotionally, and it's part of life. So it's important that we understand what it is. Because I think so many people don't realize that trauma can be very simple things where nobody really hurts you technically or intentionally. And the other thing I would share is like with sexual trauma and all those kinds of things is like the stuff that we don't want to face. That's the most scary stuff to face, is the stuff that will give us the greatest freedom and the greatest personal evolution, you know. And usually the stuff that hurts the most or is most scary that's usually the sign of like, that's where we need to go. And I think we want to understand that whatever you've experienced, you know, it doesn't make you bad, especially in the realm of sex, because so often we feel like we've done something wrong or something like that. But it's so important that we realize it doesn't make us bad, you know, and that we're not alone. What we know now is that, like, whatever you've been through, there's a lot of people been through that same thing just like you. And so I think it's important for us to allow people to meet us where we're at and know it's okay to open up and get help.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something that I swear we run into each other 20 years from now. I'm going to say, I remember you said that our measure of success, it can be measured in large part to the extent we're willing to have uncomfortable conversations. You said it better than me.
Your success will be determined by how many uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
Yeah.
I wish I wrote that. I didn't. I'm glad I remembered it. And, you know, that's really the key to life, right? So many of us shut down. We don't want to talk about something. We don't want to ask for the job. We don't want to ask for the sale. We don't want to talk to the therapist. We don't want to fight. And that's really what we have to do. You know what I mean? The other version is like, you know, we miss every shot we don't take, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, do you remember who did say that?
No, but thank you.
But okay.
There's a bumper sticker on a 1972 Toyota Tercel. But yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. The other question I got for you in kind of unpacking all this is going back. I mean, we can't live in a life of regrets, but in going back in time, if we could, this is an awful question, but if you could, is there anything you would have changed, or do you think things kind of laid out for a reason to bring you to where you are now? Or how do you kind of look at that whole issue of regrets, no regrets?
Yeah. I think that, I mean, gosh, you know, in 6th grade, we were about to win the flag football championship and the bell went off. And I know you play through the play, but for some reason I jumped up in the air and I was like, yeah, we won, and forgot to pull the guy's flag. It was right in my hand. And because of me that we lost, that I want back. We would have been champions. Anyhow. So, that I actually cried, but, no, I'm a firm believer. And if you want to go out, first I'll make the first statement. If I change anything, I believe it unravels the entire story. And there's a saying, got a few sayings. In the rearview mirror, it will all make sense. The job I hated with my brother taught me a bunch of skills that I use in Rock to Recovery, like learning how to do Google Drive and all this stuff. So many skills. So much of life is teaching us, even the stuff we don't like and we don't want, the lessons we need to learn. And in the rearview mirror, like I said, it will all make sense. Like, thank God that period of life. Now, are there tragedies where we wish we didn't have? Absolutely. There will be always the extreme examples, but I also kind of been buying into this thing that's kind of the next level from what I was saying in terms of you have to be a little more out there. But we choose to come here and incarnate, and we choose to have the lessons that we're going to have for our own soul ascension. And some people maybe believe in that stuff, but some people don't. But I'm like, I believe that, you know. But nonetheless, you know, what we learn is that for example, my addiction and struggles are the shining white light that I can help other people with. So whatever you've experienced, when we learn that our job is to bring our beautiful divine spirit into the community in the best way possible, then whatever you've gone through that sucks is how you're going to help somebody else.
Yeah.
And that to me is something I call the vortex of radness. It's when I can bring my gifts and help you, and I see you elated, elevated, whatever, and then that reflects back to me, and then we're sharing this kind of in a vortex kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great secrets of life is that we think we're helping someone else out by rendering service. We always get more out of it than anything we're giving away. It seems the way it really works.
Yeah, I heard somebody say last night, I think, to give is to receive.
Oh, I like that too.
To give is to receive. Yeah, and that's what AA was founded on. Yeah, you feel shitty, your life sucks. Go help somebody else, and you're going to feel a little bit better about yourself, you know?
Yeah. So to the folks out there who are saying, "Hey, I really am connecting with this."
Seek help.
Well, no, I mean that's what I love about this podcast is that by college age, I think the statistic is 68 to 85% of all college age kids have been through a trauma. And yet what I find inspiring are people that have been through the meat grinder of life and then come out the other end and not only put it back together, they put it back and they're doing something crazy remarkable, which, you're kind of an example of that. The books, people reaching out to you, social media, how do people plug into, your stuff and learning more about, your whole thing?
I'm mainly on Instagram. I'm on Facebook too, but you can hit me on Instagram. It's just Wes Geer. That's my main thing. I do have a website. I do speaking gigs and stuff like that, but you can catch me there. Rock to Recovery, our organization, is all over social media, and you can hit us up there at info@Rock to Recovery. And books, you said books. I don't know if this is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But when here's what happened. I started having the success in rehabs going. Has anybody seen what's going on in this room? I just had 10 miserable junkies that are now elated. How do we document that? So I got together with Constance Scharf, PhD, who PhD in, I always forget what it is, but basically ancillary services and how they make better outcomes for various forms of treatment. We have 18 vignettes in here of people it's called Rock to Recovery, Music as a Catalyst for Human Transformation. I made that up, and I barely graduated high school. I'm very proud of it. Music as a Catalyst for Human Transformation. It's 18 vignettes, short stories, if you don't speak French, on people who had incredible transformations where, by the way, our music program was part of it, but it's people that had mental health or addiction or sex trafficking or wounded veterans. There's some incredible stories of people who have transformed in here. And so it's on Amazon.com, and it's really a book of hope. And then we also tie in some of the science of music and whatever.
That's cool. The book's here in the office. And did you read it, Mel?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did.
Thank you.
I think what parallels Randy's post-traumatic thriving book, as well as the podcast, is you're not alone. And that was one of the major messages we were hoping to bring. So I think you definitely let people know there's hope.
Great.
So in reading the book, what questions, do you have any questions for Wes from having read the book?
Just what keeps you going every day? I mean, you sound really optimistic and upbeat. You probably should have your own podcast, Wes.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that love content and hearing real stories about real people, but life's not perfect. We have ups and downs. What keeps you going?
Yeah, right now I have some stuff I'm trying to do in the business world that freaks me out. Sometimes I become like catatonic, where I feel like I'm so overwhelmed and I have this list of things to do, and I'm like, I can't even do anything. I just freeze. And that's my own internal journey. But, the thing that excites me the most, which happened when I was on the journey with Korn, is I started reading spiritual books, and I've never been into reading per se, but I love this stuff. I truly believe there's a magic in this universe we can tap into. and I'm not religious, but Jesus spoke about it and the Buddha talked about it and everybody has talked about it. And you have all these people who channel books. I mean, it's out there. And that's why earlier when I was talking about, I don't want to be a believer because that closes me out. I want to be what Sadhguru calls a seeker. I just want to seek what feels right to me. And that excites me. And when I get into that excitement, like the law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, Paul Selig, who channels, I mean, if you go out there, there's people who will literally channel right in front of you. Paul Selig was an atheist and he started channeling books like verbatim that don't need to be edited. You know, what I would just say is just be an explorer, be a seeker and see what's out there. And then that's the realm where I find all inspiration and positivity and hope. You know, I truly believe that I can turn like that desperate state I get in sometimes around with the magic of positive spiritual actions.
Yeah. I'm into kind of I guess they say that in life, the first 25 years is education, whatever that looks like. The second 25 is making a name for yourself. The third 25 years is giving back. But the last 25 years is a spiritual journey. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard that, but it's along the lines of, you know, I'm in that kind of, phase where I'm really getting into the spiritual stuff. And it doesn't look like a lot of the organized religions that I've seen because, you know, Jesus was all before cathedrals and all that stuff. But if you go right back to what he actually said, he said the Spirit of God is within us. He doesn't say it's out there in that church or that cathedral or that temple. It's within us. And that seems to be a similar message to what you're saying as well.
Yeah. When I meditate, and we talked about it earlier, yes, my thoughts are mellowing out. Your brain will never stop thinking, but I connect to source energy and I feel it in here and I can't explain it. Just something that I do that feels like bliss. You know, I truly believe our core essence as we come here as humans, as spirits, is bliss, love, compassion, creativity. That's who we are. But then we have this human experience, which comes with my mom made me sad and my dog died and she broke my heart and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so, you know, it's constantly the battle of getting back to that union with God, you know, whatever that looks like for somebody.
Yeah. I have a family member who's in AA, and so I go to the meetings with them just to show support. I think alcoholism is a disease. I don't happen to have that particular gene, but I have compassion and respect for those who do and are kind of working their way through it. And a lot of times people have a real problem even talking about God because it triggers all kinds of harsh, high demand religion experiences with them. But you see those people kind of come full circle, and they do at some point often connect with some level of spirituality and, a creative, force, an intelligent creative force. The fact that we're sitting here talking to each other with DNA strings that are 6.4 alphabet characters long in exact sequence is indication of something's going on. And trying with the best we can with our 4.5 pound brains to connecting it's a cool exercise to just make that effort and do our best to connect. I don't know how well that makes sense.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you alluded to is what I saw in the rooms that I thought was so genius. Because I was a born again Christian, it didn't feel right to me, like this hell concept. And if you're an Aborigine and you tell them about Jesus and they don't go the way of going to hell, but they're living this awesome life, okay, no. So what you were talking about is what Eckhart Tolle says is that words are signposts that take us to a deeper meaning. So let's say I have a wife and we're going to have a baby, and I say, how about Cindy? The name Cindy. She's like, oh my God, no, there's a girl Cindy in high school that used to beat me up. I hate the name Cindy. Right. So when we're force fed a version of God that doesn't feel right to us, or our grandma was a super Christian and she was a bitch or whatever, there's a million versions of the story. We hear God and we're like, no, that doesn't feel like God to me. What was brilliant about AA is it says a God of your understanding. More perfectly, if they got rid of the word God, it would be a little more inclusive. But I thought when I heard that, I go, that is brilliant. And so there's kind of a saying, which is, instead of telling me what God isn't, because we all got a lot of that. God isn't your Aunt B who is this real, you know what. What is God? What does God feel like? And so, and if you've got to get rid of the word God, fine. I like the universe better. Feels better to me. But for me, the way I explain it, it's this. God is something that we go out and experience in our life. It's not like this declaration of, I am, I'm a Christian. Really? What does that mean? Are you doing anything? To me, it's how it's experienced in life. So what I say is this. When we're learning about spirituality, start with a blank canvas and realize each experience you have that feels like God is like a puzzle piece. And in time, just like you're doing a puzzle, you're like, oh my God, there's the kitty cat. Oh, and there's the rainbow. You know what I mean? Your experiences will be unique to you entirely. Nobody else has to get it, but it will start to paint a picture that is very clear and very real to you. And I think that is why it's good to be a seeker and just let the God experience be our own.
Yeah. Somebody recent, buddy of mine, who's a criminal defense lawyer, he just turned me on to a book called The D-Decay, which I'd never heard of, but it was an early 1st century, 2nd century Christian handbook. And it's got very simple rules: love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. And basically rules that add up to basically, don't steal, don't be a dick. And then what it says that is so, it's kind of comical. It says, if somebody comes to your door and says that they're a prophet, that's great. Let them in. Let them spend one night, maybe two, and send them on their way with some bread. And if they ask for money, they're not a prophet. And there's no talk of churches or cathedrals. It's just basically people sitting down like we are right now, talking about the best we can of our spiritual journeys. And that was it. It wasn't any more complicated than that. It's sad to see something so cool and simple, just loaded up with sugar and lard and flour and to the point where that apple's no longer recognizable as an apple because there's so much garbage added into it where it's like junk food, spirituality or religion. Yeah. And it's just important to kind of go back to that essence and that it's not complicated. In fact, these conversations were so simple that the shepherds who had no education, they got it. And that's really kind of where I'm landing is just a very simple version of just sitting around with people saying, hey, what do you think about this? I like that. What do you think about that? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And just kind of respecting each other's journeys. I think that's kind of cool. And that's what I'm gaining from our conversations and what you're kind of sharing. Mel, anything else?
So just an observation of all the guests that we've had on the podcast. I would say every guest in this third and final Thrive stage, they all talk about their discovery of their God as they know it. Mm-hmm. Whether they grew up with church and religion or not, it just comes as part of that self-love, self-discovery, recovery process. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. That is
interesting. But a very important part of moving forward in a positive way.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, could all these people that say they found God and get something positive out of it, and on and on and on through eons in every culture. And that's one thing I loved about touring the world is you go to Bali or Kuala Lumpur or whatever, and you see man's journey to try to understand, connect, and honor God. And it all looks different everywhere, but it's all kind of the same.
Yeah.
And so could all of them be wrong? And there's a great saying too, which is like, I'd rather go through life believing in God and be wrong than go through life not believing in God and be wrong.
I like that too. That's beautiful. I was just in India, I think in October, and we went to some Hindu temples and some Buddhist temples. And we were driving down the road and I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I told the driver, can you mind going back? And this guy had the monkey god, which is like a 40-foot statue of God in the form of a monkey. And I was very curious. I said, what's that all about? And, the Western mind would be, kind of scoffing at that. Right. But I said, that's not cool. There's got to be some meaning here. And I said, well, is this like a literal thing or is it metaphorical? I'm just trying to understand. I'm not trying to judge. And he kind of shared, the personality of God, that dimension that image was conveying. And I thought, okay, now I kind of get it. I wasn't ready to, become a Hindu, but I respected their spiritual journey because we're all kind of learning from each other.
Yeah, and what I learned is there's a lot of stories in Hinduism and such where they're kind of anecdotal stories, or they take them like, well, you really think that happened? Oh, come on. No, it's just kind of like it's a metaphorical story. It's really more Christianity. And I'm not trying to offend any Christians where it's like, no, all this happened. This really happened. And it only is this. And it can't be anything but this. And more other, religions and spiritual philosophies are much more fluid about it.
Yeah. There was a documentary I just watched on Netflix. Just, what was it? God Forbid, where Jerry Falwell's son went off the rails and was, anyway, it's crazy. And it's sad to see, again, something that's cool so misused to where it becomes unrecognizable. Because when you go back to what Jesus or Moses or Buddha or any number of folks have said and what they actually said back in history, there's a lot of wisdom there. But then we start piling it on with garbage, later on. But anything else, Mel, that you're thinking of?
Well, just for people out there listening, where is your Rock to Recovery music studio located?
Well, we're an ancillary service, so we travel mobily and bring our music program to treatment programs wherever we can.
So anywhere in the United States where you're...
Well, we're definitely regional, and so our strong points are basically from Santa Barbara down to the Mexican border. We do have some business in Portland and Nashville, and looking to expand to Florida as soon as we can. Our people are very... They're talented and they're unique to have the abilities they do to play so many instruments and sing and write a song and also run a group and connect to people. So it's a niche group of people we have, and so that does make it a little harder than selling T-shirts and just making more T-shirts. So
if a talented musician is interested, would they send you an audition tape, or
they can reach out to us
find you, or how do you find them?
Yeah, a lot of people reach out to us via our website, rocktorecovery.com, rocktorecovery.org. And again, the Rock to Recovery main email is info@rocktorecovery.org. We're pretty easy to find on the social media. They can definitely reach out. And people do all the time, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you one last question, but first I want to just say thanks for being thanks for being here. Thanks for being so generous with your time. I mentioned to you, I wrote a book. This is Leo Fender.
So cool.
This is signed by Mrs. Leo Fender, who's passed away. And I had the privilege of writing that with Mrs. Fender. It's all about Leo Fender's journey.
I get this. It's written to me.
Well, yeah, but her signatures on the next page are so back. But
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look, there you are. Wow, you're cool, dude.
I don't know. She's cool, and it was a privilege to work with it. And then here's
Bell. Look at that. So dope.
And then here's the book, Post Traumatic Thriving. It just got released this month.
Very nice, by RandallBell, PhD. I wonder who that is. Ooh. That's very cool. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I'm just going to ask one last question. We'll call it a wrap. And to somebody who's out there struggling with trauma, you've had some just absolute gold standard, platinum standard experiences. What's your final word to people that are, back in when you were in your 20s or teens, just going through something? What's your final bit of advice to these folks?
Yeah, I would just say you're not alone. There's people more sick than you, less sick than you, more traumatized, less traumatized, that have found help and solution and work through it to get to the other side. So I just would always want everybody to know that recovery of their truest, most loved self is there for them too.
Yeah. Rock to Recovery. Go to Amazon. We bought it. It's going around the office right now. I highly recommend it. We've been so excited about this interview coming up. And again, thank you.
Say that to all the guests.
I probably do, but I mean it every time that I say it.
Well, anybody that can make an vintage Buck Owens guitar completely out of tune, tune it up and make it sound good.
I did. I get credit for that. Yeah. And I was going to try to do one more plug, but I don't know if I can. Let me see. Well, you guys
That's
edit
okay.
stuff. You guys edit stuff.
We can edit it. Take your time. Find it.
Okay, look. Here's my band. If you guys zoom in on this.
Oh, here, I'll put it right up to the camera.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you can
scan this sucker.
You can scan that QR code. Oh, where's the focus? Wait, there it is. Now hold on. Yeah. That's my new band, my new music. Give us a follow. Check us out. We're on Spotify. Woohoo!
Oh, nice.
And so I can't read it from here.
Yeah.
Human. It's human, and we spell it really screwed up because we don't want anybody to be able to actually find our music.
Oh, okay.
All right, Wes Geer, thank you so much. Rock to Recovery. Mel, thanks for stepping in.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mel.
Thanks for coming, Wes.
And we'll see you on the next episode of Post-Traumatic Thriving.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.